Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Gunatitamanam Chidanandarupam Chidabhasakam Sarvadam Kam Jnanagamyam Munidhyeyam Akasha Rupam Paresham Parabrahma Rupam Ganesham Bhajema. Good evening and a warm welcome from Team Param Vedanta for the 59th session of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. In today's session, we continue our study of Upadesha Saram. Verses 23 to 30 will be covered in today's session, thereby completing this great masterpiece by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Today's speakers include Dr. Kiran Sri Ullas, Dr. Divakar, and Dr. Anupama Shetty. Our revered teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, in addition to himself presenting two verses, will set in motion today's presentations and summarize the verses by adding his insights. Today's verses will be chanted by Kumari Aditi. Dear seekers, come let us fathom the depth of this great work and attempt to understand the subtleties of Gnana Marga and the inescapable and direct path of Atma Vichara or self-enquiry as advocated by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Over to you, Guruji.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati, for a nice introduction. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. A great disciple of Bhagavan Ramana, Muruganar, was composing a Tamil poem based on the Shiva Puranas, where a group of seekers were performing rituals in the forest to obtain special powers. When it came to that part where Shiva had to instruct them spiritual instructions, Sri Muruganar approached Bhagavan and said, Bhagavan, can you compose this part? Without much hesitation, Bhagavan composed 30 verses in Tamil on the Upadesha by Lord Shiva to these sadhakas. And that is how we have this wonderful text available for us. This is the third time we are presenting Upadesha Sara. On the first time, we presented the sadhana part. The verses 1 to 15 were various sadhanas which prepare a person for Jnana Yoga. This verse, number 10, summarizes the first 15 verses, which says, Hritstale Manaha. Hrit here represents the heart, it represents the seat of the Atma. When my mind is established in the Atma, Swastataha, the objective of all the sadhanas is to come to that state when my mind is established in the heart. When we sit in Chin Mudra, that is exactly what we do. This index finger, which represents my mind, which is useful for transactional purposes, recognizes that it is only for transactional purposes and the real me is the Atma. And this is possible through various sadhanas like Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bodhascha. Bodhascha is Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga begins with the Atma Vichara part. Bhagavan's approach was through who am I inquiry. Meaningful inquiry is possible. Meaningful self-inquiry or meaningful who am I inquiry is possible only when a person is ready to consider that I am someone other than the body. If I am convinced that I am this body, I will have no doubts about my true nature, and therefore I am not ready to inquire. But if I am ready to think that I have been there before this body has come into being, and it is possible that I will continue to be there even after this body is gone, then I am ready to make this inquiry. Meaningful inquiry again is possible only with the help of a guru and with the help of the Shastras. Our great Guru, Swami Paramarthananda Ji, has given us certain fundamentals of Vedanta, which will help us to proceed with this who am I inquiry. The first fundamental law, which all of us need to remember again and again, is that I am someone other than whatever I experience. And because I'm experiencing this body, I'm experiencing this mind, I am someone other than this body and mind. And this is considered as the first and the most important step in a Vedantic inquiry. And this is also called a prakriya or a technique called Drik Drishya Viveka. And therefore, the aging of my body is not my aging. The sickness of my body is not my sickness. It is only the sickness of the body. And so too the death happens to the body, not to me. Bhagavan began the whole process of inquiry from verse 16, and this is considered the key verse in Atma Vichara, Drishya Varitam Chittam Atmanaha Chitva Darshanam Tattva Darshanam, which is the same as keep on negating whatever Drishya, object of my experience. And when you keep on negating Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham, ultimately you will reach what? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, and that is what is called Tattva Darshanam. Bhagavan helps us to find out Manasantu Kim. What is this thing called the mind? And if you look into the mind, mind is full of thoughts. All the objects that I can see and experience have been reduced into thoughts. All these thoughts, Bhagavan calls them as Idam Vritti. The wall, the fan, the light, which are all thoughts in my mind. I see the wall, I see the light, I see the fan. Who is this I? That is also a thought, and that is called Aham Vritti. And these Idam Vritti is supported by Aham Vritti, and the Aham Vritti is supported by the bigger I. Bhagavan calls it as Aham. When the small I is destroyed, Ahaminasha Baji, Aham Taya, Spurati Ritsvayam Paramapurna Sat. The moment the small I is destroyed, the small I was covering the bigger I. The large I, we don't have to do anything. It becomes manifest. Now, when we come to inquire, who is this real I? We come to terms, the real I is in the form of Sat or existence, Chit or consciousness, and what kind of Sat and Chit? Pure Sat and pure Chit, which is Ananta, limitless, or Ananda. As this is a very subtle topic, it requires a refined mind. It requires a few years of self-inquiry under the guidance of a Acharya to be able to understand these terms, what is Sat and what is Chit. Just like when you're going to high altitude, the body needs to be acclimatized to the rarefied atmosphere. Nicely brought out in the Taittiriya Upanishad, which Bhagavan has given us in this verse 22, where we keep on negating the Panchakoshas. Whenever you say, I am fat or thin, I refer to the body. When you say, I am hungry or thirsty, it refers to Pranamaya Kosha. Whenever I say, I'm happy or sad, it refers to Manomaya Kosha. When I say, I'm intelligent or dull, it refers to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. When I say I do not know, I'm not too sure, I'm not know about this, it refers to the Anandamaya Kosha. When I say I am, and I'm established in the I am in the Atma. Am means I am existent. I don't need the sense organs or the mind to prove that I am there. I know I am there. I am existent. I am conscious. So the real me is Atma, which is existent, which is consciousness. When I say I am a man, I'm an Indian, I'm a doctor, I have added Anatma, and the Anatma can overshadow and cover the Atma. This is the problem. But if I'm established as I am, this is Brahma Vidya. To understand the verses of what we are studying today, from verses 23 onwards, these are verses or exclamations of a realized master who's woken up. Yat sakshat kurute prabodha samaye. That means, imagine a situation when you have woken up from your dream. Prabodha samaya means woken up. In my dream, I have created a dream body and I have created a dream world. Now I have awakened, but imagine, this is an imagination, that my dream is continuing. Now I know that I am the creator of this dream body. I am the creator of the dream mind. And the dream is continuing. But now I know that I am the creator of this whole dream body and dream mind. And whatever I see and experience, that this body and the whole dream world is Swatmanam Eva Advayam. It is not different from me. Such a person has woken up to a new level of reality, and that reality is called Paramarthika. When we dream, that level of dream which is real is called Pratibhasika. When we wake up to this world, it is Vyavahara. When we wake up into an understanding of the level of Bhagavan and Swamiji, we have come to Paramarthika. When people have come to Paramarthika and they want to share their understanding, they have difficulty, just like if you have to explain to somebody what sweetness is, who has never tasted sugar in their life. How will you explain? So what these masters do, they keep quiet. Bhagavan Ramana was silent for many years, maybe 15, 16 years he was silent. But then when so many people come and they want to share their understanding, and with the hope that some of them will be able to understand and come to their level, they will be able to, and that is how we have all these Upadeshasara. The problem of and the confusion that we have is that we make a confusion between Brahman and Ishvara. Remember, Ishvara is still in the triangular format. Ishvara is in the Jiva Jagat Ishvara that we will be able to understand. Brahman comes in the domain of Paramarthika. And whenever we have a confusion, normally we think as follows. I have Brahman knowledge, but one day I will get Brahman experience. And this may help with the help of a guru through certain special sadhana or through pilgrimage or through the grace of God. One day this is going to happen. So this is the myth that our teachers have to. There is no question of Brahma Anubhava, because this is something that we have all the time. That consciousness, because of which I'm able to speak, because of which I'm able to listen, is what Bhagavan is trying to bring our attention as the real knowledge. The real knowledge is not the knowledge of the mind, but the real knowledge is the one that is illumining the mind. And we need to come to that level, and that level is the Paramarthika. With this background, let us try to understand these verses. The opening verse will be explained to us by Dr. Kiran. Over to you, Dr. Kiran.
Namaste, Hari Om, Gurubhyo Namaha, welcome. Ramana Maharshi here in the last few verses summarizes the whole Upanishadic knowledge. Hegde sir wanted us to simplify this as much as possible. I'll try to do my best. Let us go into the verse proper. Satvabhasika chitkavetara satya sattayahi chet chittayahi aham. Where is consciousness separate from existence, which can objectify the existence as an object, because existence is consciousness and I am consciousness. Let us study this further. Sat, Chit, Ananda. What are these terms? Let me borrow the concept from Dridrishya Viveka. Imagine we are working in a car. We always work from home and then now working from car. As we are moving, a lot of scenery pass by. We never even notice it. And suddenly I feel hungry. I look around, all the restaurants around come into existence. And we say, oh, that is my favorite restaurant. Then that is the Priyam. Because I have noticed it or I have enlivened it, that has come into existence. So, Sat, Chit, Ananda are three things which describe the same concept. Imagine if Sat, Chit and Ananda are different one, then one will have the higher order of reality than the other. So somebody will say Sat is higher than Chit. Then this error of infinite regression, that is E1, E2, E3 comes into play. So this is not possible. Let us study further. So next slide, please. Brahma Swarupa is Satyam Nanam Anantam. What is this? Sat Chit Ananda. What do they describe? Let us take this example of red rose. When I say red rose, there can be many red things which are not roses, many other flowers, or the roses can be other colors also, like yellow, white, etc. Do you mean like that? No. When I say sugar or sweet sugar, it describes the content. We cannot have sweet without sugar or sugar without the sweet. This is what we mean by Satyam Nanam Anantam. We cannot have, fire without heat or heat without fire. We cannot have dark light. This is how we mean by Satyam Nanam or Satchit Anandam. Wherever there is existence, it comes from Brahman alone. And Brahman alone is there. There is no wisp of anything else. This is what is described in Ishavasyam Idam Sarva. And if there is anything comes into existence, that is from Brahman alone. And when we mean by Brahman, just like how we say sugar is sweet and sweet is sugar, we mean it is Brahm, Sat, Chit, Ananda together. Next slide, please. Now, you might ask me, oh, I see this body. So is body giving rise to Atman or the other way around? Why can't we say that body is real? Imagine, today I'm wearing green shirt. Yesterday I was wearing red shirt. Am I a different person? I will say I'm a different person. You will say, what are you talking, doctor? So this is not so, because I am the wearer and this shirt is different. Similarly, I'm experiencing this body. So I am not this body. I'm experiencing this hand. I'm not hand. So as sir has told, everything I experience is not me and is lower order of reality. I am the ultimate awarer, the enlivening principle that is blessing this body. The food which is eaten by the body is converted to some part, and this Brahman alone or Atma is enlivening it. Just like there cannot be two enlivening principle, because if there is, again, as I described before, if there is two enlivening principle, somebody will say that is higher conscious, this is lower conscious. No, there is one infinite consciousness of Atma, which is enlivening everything. And all other things which I see, my body, your body, everything is the differences because of the reflecting medium alone. Just similar to how different crystals reflect the same light and appear differently, this body just appears different because of the defect of the Upadhi. So let us come to the conclusion. Then who am I? I am, as Ramana has asked, I am Sachit Ananda. I am Ekaha Advitiya. I am the awareness enlivening principle, the light of the light enlivening all other things. I am not this body, but I am revealed through this body. Satyahai Chit Chityayai Aham. Existence is consciousness, and I am consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran, for explaining a very difficult verse, and also a verse that is very often quoted. So often teachers will be quoting Sattva Basika Chit Kwa Ve Itara. Where is that Sat that can, or where is that Chit that can illumine the Sat? And the teachers say Satyahi Chit, and then makes a big jump, Chittayahi Aham. Where is that consciousness apart from existence to illumine existence? Now comes to the point of what is this Atma Anubhava? See, I am the experiencer, but I am also existent. There are no two separate things, that I and existence. All that we need to do is to be able to claim I am that. So there is no two things. Chit or existence cannot be separate from Sat. My true nature is Sat and Chit. Whenever they are together, we experience limitlessness. Whenever they seemingly separate, that happens in dream or in waking world, although I see existence outside and consciousness within, I need to make that internal correction. Just like when I see an image in the mirror, I know I see that outside, but I know it is not apart from me. Swamiji wants us to reflect on these words and to claim it. And what is the word that he wants us to say? I am that non-material consciousness which makes this body alive and functioning. I am that non-material existence which makes this whole world existent. If you want to extend the claim, because of consciousness, this body is alive and functioning. Because of me as consciousness, because of me as existence, this whole world is existent. This world depends on me for self-existence. This is the claim. My eva sakalam jatam, my sarvam pratishtitam. The next verse will be explained to us by Ullas. Over to you, Ullas.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We just saw that consciousness and existence are the same. It's a very big claim and such a wonderful explanation to make sure that we understand that. Here, another big claim is being made. The verse is very, very simple. Here, the claim is made is that the Ishvara and Jiva are nothing but the same. They're not really different. It's so simple, like every other hard thing, which is very simple, and all the simple things are very hard to actually understand. And many times we actually can intellectually understand it, but we need to see how much it is true for us. That is the whole sadhana, I believe, that there is. For example, when we are seeing this mobile or laptop in which we are seeing, it is very true for me. It cannot be any truer than that. Is this fact that much true for me that Ishvara and Jiva, I and the Lord, are nothing but the same? So this is the Mahavakya verse in which the Ishvara Jiva Aikyam is being proposed. And it says that they're no different. The difference is only in costumes, but the essence is same. So let us just see what is this Jiva and Ishvara if we have to mathematically understand. In the next slide, we see that Jiva is nothing but consciousness with an individual conditioning. What is this conditioning? We could see whether it is the 3 bodies or 5 sheaths, whichever we want to take. But for example, these 3 bodies, the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. This is just a conditioning when we have applied at an individual level on the consciousness, then we call it as a Jiva. In the same way, when we apply this conditioning at the macro level, when we say all the bodies, manifest and unmanifest, whatever we can touch and feel, that's the total gross body. Then there is a total mind, that total subtle body. And then there is a total causal body. When we apply that conditioning on the consciousness, then we call it as an Ishvara. So what is really the difference? Just this conditioning, but the reality underlying that is again the same consciousness. So we need to just, if we go to the next slide, we see that in the next slide it says Sat Swabhavato Vastu Kevalam. The underlying reality, once we remove this conditioning, is essentially the same consciousness. When I see it from one perspective, the same man is seen as a father from his son's perspective. The same man is seen as a son from his father's perspective. In Tattva Bodha, we use the word Upadhi. Only the Upadhis are different. Here, Ramana Maharshi even goes one step beyond to trivialize the difference. He says it's just a different costume. How much of a difference there is? As we saw in the last presentation, that if we wear just different colored clothes, it doesn't make us different. In the same manner here, only the costumes are different between the Jiva and Ishvara, only the conditionings are different, but the essence, but the essential nature, which is the consciousness behind which I am, is still the same. So we see that the difference is nothing but when I see I am a drop, then I see I'm a Jiva. In the next slide we see, and then when I see, okay, I am the whole ocean, then I think that that is equivalent to the Ishvara. And then I say Ishvara is Sarvagnya, Sarva Shaktiman, but I am Alpagnya, Alpa Shaktiman, because I consider myself just this body, just this mind. For example, if there is a cell in my body, then it will only consider that I only know about this much part of the body. But I as the entirety, then I think that I am Sarvagnya. I know everything that is happening in my body. So in the same manner, whatever is happening at the level of ocean, ocean is aware of it. But that is again the conditioning, that we are looking at a drop level or a wave level or an ocean level. But when we look at it from the water level, then everything is the same. All the others are just names and form. But again, it's not very easy to understand it intellectually also, but it is very hard for us to actually make it true for us, that it is absolutely a fact, like Ramana Maharshi saw it for him. So we need to just keep on doing this sadhana and meditate upon this fact, this kind of a nididhyasanam verse in which we need to see that I am actually that water, that consciousness, and let's not get into the jiva and Ishvara differences. The essence is the same, just the outer layer is different. Hari Om sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulas, for explaining the crux of all Vedanta. Extremely difficult to believe, but this is very true, that the essential nature in me, which is conscious existence, is not different from the essential nature of Paramatma. The only difference is the Upadhi, the medium. Whenever the medium is different, then it appears, one looks like a wave, the other looks like the ocean, but essentially both of them are water. How can Ishvara, which is so great, be the same as Jiva? The whole exercise is to move from the name and form and come to the essence. Whenever I am identified with the wave, I see limitations. Even when I see as the ocean, ocean is also essentially water. When you come down to the level of understanding as water, then it comes to Paramarthika. But when you see wave and ocean, then you see it as Jiva and Ishvara. Whenever there is Jiva and Ishvara, we are still in what is called the triangular format. True liberation cannot be possible in the triangular format. The Kaivalya Upanishad gives this beautiful verse which says, Trishu damasu yad bhogyam bhokta bhogasya yad bhavet tebhyo vilakshanam sakshi chinmatroham sada shiva. When you declare that I am not this Triputi, who is this Triputi? Swami Anubhavananda ji gives the example of this cricket example. We identify the Jivatma as the batsman. The fielding team is Jagat. Paramatma is the empire. Now this is the Triputi of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. As long as we are in the triangular format, we are in samsara. Now, why, even though Paramatma is so great, in the triangular format, Paramatma is also limited because all the three are mutually dependent on one another. For example, if any one of this in this Triputi of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara refuses to continue the game for some reason, if the batsman walks out or if the fielders walk out, even if Paramatma is there, there is no game at all. That means in the triangular format, everyone is mutually dependent on each other. And that is why true liberation is going beyond Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, which will be explained more by Dr. Divakar. Over to you, Dr. Divakar.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This verse is a stronger reiteration of the previous verse, which was beautifully explained by Ullas. In the previous verse, Bhagavan Ramana explained that the essential nature of the Jivatma and Paramatma is the same. This essential nature is the Atma. Atma is called as Paramatma when viewed from the Samasti or macrocosmic angle, and the very same Atma is called as Jivatma when seen from the Vyashti or microcosmic angle. So the differences are only at the level of the operating medium or the container or the Vesha, which is Jiva and Parama. But the content of the media is the same, which is the Atma. This visualization of oneness in Jivatma and Paramatma is called as Ekatma Bhava or Jivatma Paramatma Aikya Bhava. Any scriptural teaching which reveals this oneness in Jivatma and Paramatma is called as Mahavakya. Let's see the verse in the next slide. Veshahanatah Swatmadarsanam Ishadarsanam Swatmarupatah. Continuing from the previous verse, where it was said that the difference between the Jiva and Isha is at the Veshadhi, body-mind complex level only. Jivatma has smaller costumes or Vesha, whereas Paramatma has bigger Vesha. What are the costumes of Jivatma? As learned from the Tattva Bodha, we know that Vishwa is the gross body, Taijasa is the subtle body, and Prajna is the causal body. And what are the costumes of Paramatma? Virat, the macrocosmic gross body, Hiranyagarbha, the sum total of all subtle bodies, and Antaryami or Ishvara is the cosmic causal body. Veshahanataha, on giving up these conditionings, these costumes, which is nothing but the Nama Rupa or the Upadhis with the attributes, what will the sadhaka see? Swatma Darshanam, which is nothing but the very own true self or the Atma. Next slide, sir. One who identifies with this Atma, Swatma Darshanam, is the enlightened sadhaka who doesn't see any difference between the self and the God. However, one who identifies with the Veshadhi, the body-mind, will continue to be in Dvaita, identifying with one's inferior limited attributes, while praising the God as the superior deity with all superior attributes. Now let's look at this through the commonly used example, which was also explained in the previous verse. And that is the example of the ocean and the wave. Ocean is the Paramatma with the bigger attributes, and the wave is the Jivatma with the limited attributes. But we all know that both the ocean and the wave is nothing but the water alone. Now let's look at the scenarios. If the Jivatma identifies with the wave form, then it goes through ups and downs and will experience fear and anxiety on seeing the shore as its life comes to an end on reaching the shore. So the Jivatma identifying as the wave will always be inferior and remains a dasa to the superior ocean. And this is the Dvaita Bhava. The very same Jivatma, if it discards its Vesha, which is the costume of the name and form called the wave, then it realizes that it is nothing but the limitless water. And more importantly, it realizes that there is no difference between the water of the wave and the water of the ocean, and feels complete. And this is the Purnam. And this is the Advaita Bhava. On realizing this, there is no need or there is no question of returning back to identifying with the perishable wave form. Next slide, sir. The important teaching of this verse is to assure all sadhakas that the experience of realization of one's true self is no different from the much sought after vision of the God, which is the spiritual seekers, which is what spiritual seekers yearn for. Isha Darshanam Swatma Rupataha. Bhagavan Ramana's direct method of teaching is that there is no need to look for the God outside. The very self-realization is the God realization. And that is the end of the spiritual journey. But we all look for the God as an external, powerful deity with superior attributes. This is Ekarupa Dvaita Bhakti. And this is as a result of strong identification with the Vesha, that is the body-mind identification. And the idea of I am the body continues to thrive due to the conditionings nurtured over many births. These hardened conditionings get stored in our causal body, Karana Sharira, which is the plane of Agnanam, the ignorance, and therefore perpetually reinforce the I am the body idea. With the guidance of the Guru and the Shastra, sadhaka has to practice systematic self-inquiry, which is nothing but the Gnana Yoga, to reverse this long-conditioned body identification. Even a realized Gnani, Sthita Prajna, may identify with the body, mind, and ego due to this long conditioning. However, such identifications with the ego will only be brief, transient, sparsely, and inconsequential. Just like a burnt rope, which still appears to be a rope, but has lost its strength to tie anybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Divakar. This was a nice explanation that self-realization is none other than God realization. This is exactly what happens, why self-realization is so different from any other forms of knowledge. We are wanting to know who we are. And the greatest point of this discovery is that we do not discover anything new. We only discover a new status about ourselves. When you say, I am that, aham brahmasmi, it's a new recognition of something that I have had all along. A nice example was given of when Kunti calls Karna during the Mahabharata war, and when she wants to share a secret which she had kept for a long time, and she says that I have 6 sons, 5 of them you know. Would you want to know who is the eldest of them all? And he said, yes, I'm very keen to know. And she reveals that the eldest Pandava is you. Now, what happens when a person recognizes his true nature? What is the real big change that has happened? Now, this is exactly what happens when we get into the mode of self-inquiry. The usual examples given in addition to this Kunti Karna story is about the 10th man story. When 10 students cross the river, they find that only 9 of them are there because they are counting everyone except themselves. In their anxiety, they say, Dashamaha Nasti. When the Guru comes and sees all of them and he realizes that each one has forgotten to count themselves, he says, Dashamaha Asti. And who is the 10th man, the one that you're looking for? Is none other than yourself. So the real self-discovery is the discovery of not a new entity, but a new status about myself. We come to verses 26 and 27, which are more difficult to understand. And because these are words of a realized master explained by another realized teacher, as far as possible, I will confine my explanation to their words so that I will not create any mistake in trying to explain. I will be using only Swamiji's words to explain what Swamiji had to say about Bhagwan's words, Atma samstitihi swatma darshanam, Atma nirdvaya, Atma nishtataha. Atma nirdvaya. Atma, or the real me, is only one. There is no two Atmas. It is non-dual. Atma samstitihi means abiding in one's own self is the same as Swatma darshanam, that is the vision of oneself. Atma nishtataha. This also means fixing on oneself. So what Bhagwan is trying to say is, as the Atma is non-dual, abiding in one's own self or consciousness is the vision of yourself. That means the true self is none other than the experiencer in me. When you identify with the experiencer and say, I am, then you are established in yourself. When you say, I am a man, I'm an Indian, then you have identified with the Anatma. What kind of knowledge this is? There are 3 kinds of knowledge. This Ekatma knowledge is very different from any other knowledge that we have. Normal knowledge can be coming under the domain of what is called Paroksha or Pratyaksha. The example given is, for example, if I have not traveled to Kailash or Manasarovar, I'm very interested to know about these places. So I Google and I get images, I get information about how Kailash looks, how Manasarovar looks. And when this is an indirect knowledge, this is called Paroksha. One day when I get a chance to travel and go to that spot where I can feel the water and I can feel the ground around Kailash, then that experience is now transferred from Paroksha to Pratyaksha. When it comes to self-knowledge, there is no question of otherness. This is the problem. It is not from Paroksha to Pratyaksha. The new term given is Aparoksha. Paroksha Jnanam refers to any objective knowledge. Aparoksha knowledge, Aparoksha Jnanam means the knowledge that that entity that I'm looking for is none other than myself. Once this idea is very clear, then what happens? Normally, a seeker would say, I have only knowledge, but I have not yet been liberated. But once I realize that my real nature is none other than Atma, which is none other than Brahman, now I can say, I have knowledge, and therefore I am liberated. We will go to the next verse, which is a related verse, where he's still talking about what is this consciousness. Jnana varjita ajnana hina chit jnanam asti kim jnatum antaram. Word meaning ajnana hina chit. Atma being of the nature of consciousness, we are never ignorant at any time. Jnana varjita. That means there is no arrival of jnanam. Jnanam asti kim. How can there be a second knower? Kim anantaram, other than Atma, to know the Atma. Which means Atma being of the nature of consciousness, we are never ignorant. We are all the time aware of this consciousness within me. Therefore, Atma Jnanam cannot be an event in time that I became a Jnani at a particular time. And then Bhagavan asks a question, is there a second knower other than consciousness to know the Atma? So there cannot be a second knower. There is only one. So I will give the exact explanation of what Swamiji says, why there can be no special Atma experience. The nature of Atma being Chit or consciousness, which is making us conscious being, and it is experienced by all the people all the time. And therefore, for this consciousness or this experience in me, I do not have to do any ritual or any sadhana. Therefore, since it is ever experienced, nobody is ignorant of consciousness. And because there is no ignorance, you don't need knowledge. There is therefore, from that angle, there is no question of Atma Jnana. I'll repeat again. There is no need of gaining jnanam because consciousness is there, which I'm experiencing all the time. But then what is the problem? What is the difference between Ajnani and myself? Upon this Atma Jnanam, I have superimposed the attributes or the limitations of the body and mind, and therefore I experience all limitations. So, and because of the identification with the body-mind, I experience various forms of limitations. So what is the sadhana that we need to do? Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. Remove the mind, body, ahankara, memory, and so on. And then discover that I am Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. We do not need Atma Jnanam. We only have to remove all those attributes which I have superimposed on myself. Vedantic study helps us to remove all these attributes and help us to reveal the true I, which has always been there. And once you discover your true I, abide in that I. So the entire Vedantic study, I'm repeating, is not to gain Atma Jnanam, because which is always there, but to remove these false attributes and reveal the true nature. We must stop at I am. Whenever I say I'm a doctor, etc., then we enter into the world of Anatma. Vedanta is only there to remove all these attributes and come to I am. The next 3 verses will be explained to us by Dr. Anupama, which is the benefit of self-knowledge. Over to you, Dr. Anupama.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, verses 28 to 30. Kim Swarupam iti Atmadarshane Avyaya Bhava Apurna Chit Sukham. The previous verses have described Atma as Sat, the non-material existence, and Chit, the non-material consciousness. Sat, Chit, Rupa, Atma. The following verses complete this description by adding the third essential nature, Ananda. According to Vedanta, the only source of Ananda is oneself. Isn't the world a source of Ananda? Vedanta says, on experiencing an object that conforms to our desire and expectations, a transient ideal circumstance is created wherein the mind stabilizes into a sattvic state. It is this sattvic mind that reflects Atmananda. Let's try to understand the dog bone Ananda. Certain objects or experiences manifest the Ananda that already exists within us. We know dogs enjoy biting into bones. Sometimes a dog bites into a sharp edge of the bone and gets injured and bleeds. The dog, ironically, now enjoys a juicy bone. We know that bones per se are bone dry. The dog, with its dog logic, thinks before biting, no blood. After biting, blood. Hence, bone is the source of blood. This is not very different from our triangular format logic. Just as this dog's logic seems comical to us, our Vishayananda derived from worldly experiences is unreal from the Vedantic perspective. When joy is neither an ingredient nor the intrinsic nature of any object, seeking joy from it is delusional. A person or object rejected by one individual is madly sought after by another. Now, is this person or thing a source of joy or sorrow? Seeking joy from the world outside is our delusion. Bhagavan says, when we start to inquire, Kim Swarupam iti Atma Darshane, Atma Anandam is never modified. Abhava, never created. Apurna, infinite. Chit Sukham, consciousness, bliss. We realize Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa of Atma. It is this Atma Ananda that is spasmodically reflected through our various interactions with the world. Yogaratova, Bhogaratova, Sangaratova, Sangavihina, Yasya Brahmani, Ramate Chittam, Nandati Nandati, Nandatyeva. To a person who has awakened to this Atmananda, it is immaterial whether he is in a crowd or alone because his mind rests in the temple of joy. Our desires, passions, and attachments to worldly beings and objects create a tsunami in our minds and ruffle out our Atmananda. Verse 29. Bandha muktyatītam param sukham vindatiha jivatsu daivikaka. Bhagavan says, this non-experiential, infinite Atma Ananda or Param Sukham is beyond bondage and liberation. Bandha Mukti Atitam. While Vedanta tells us that bondage is a notional misconception created by Avidya Maya or Atma Anatma Aviveka. This ignorance makes us feel tied to our body-mind complex and the consequential samsara. Through self-inquiry, we intuitively grasp the truth that I am the awareness, the experiencer, the Turyam, the subject, to which the body-mind complex and the world just appear and disappear. When this bondage is only notional, where is the need for freedom? For example, a dream tiger is fearsome. We need to escape from it. On waking up, there is no tiger. Where is the need to escape? Therefore, Bandha Mukta Atita means that when we realize there is no bondage, there is no need for freedom. Bhagavan says, Daivikaha Jiva Vindati Iha. A person with divine virtues, the Dairi Sampath of chapter 16, realizes Atma Ananda Iha, here in this very life, here in this very world. Finally, Aham Apetakam Nijavibhanakam Mahad Idam Tapo Ramana Vagyam. Bhagavan says, Idam, meaning this self-knowledge, Mahad Tapa, is the greatest form of austerity. What is the principle of tapasya? It is the willful rejection of something dear to us. The greater the rejection, the greater the tapasya. What is our greatest and dearest possession? Our ahankara, the small I. According to Ramana, that tapaha by which the ego is destroyed, aham apetakam, is indeed mahata tapa. What happens when the ahankara gets eliminated? Vijavibhanakam, the real I, the Sat Chit Atma I, is evident. What about the numerous tapas, penance, fasting, etc. that we do? Devoid of self-knowledge, any form of tapas performed through 100 births will not give mukti. Kurute Ganga Sagara Gamana Prita Paripalanam Athava Danam Jnana Vihina Sarvamatena Bhajatina Muktim Janma Shatena. This text is Ramana Vagyam, the words of any jnani who revels, ramate, in Kaivalya Dhama, a state of total absence of ego. A jnani whose mind revels in Brahman. Yasya Brahmani ramate chittam nandati nandati nandatyeva. When we allow the divine principle to manifest through us, we let God express his joy and glory through us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for explaining the 3 verses. Verse 28, Kim Swarupam iti Atma Darshane Avyaya Bhava Apurna Chit Sukham. My true nature is Avyaya. I have never been, I'm not going to decay. Abhava, there is no birth. I am Purna Chit Sukham. Once you discover that the Ananda is there within me, and then everything else in the world is Vishaya Ananda, which has its own limitations. This is another very difficult verse to understand, that liberation is dropping the idea that one is bound. When Bhagavan or any master gets liberated, then they realize that they would like all others to join them, to be experience what is being a Jivan Mukta. That is why Vindate Iha Jiva Tu Daivikam. In this world, in this body, you can attain to a state of Jivan Mukta simply by dissociating your body-mind complex and identifying with the Atma. Then what happens? You will realize that being bound is a misconception. Now, all that I need to see yourself as an illuminator. I illumine pleasant situations, I illumine unpleasant situations. As Atma, as Anatma, there is no complete solution or there is no freedom. Do whatever you may do. You will have temporary feeling of bondage, a temporary feeling of liberation, but these cycles will continue. As Anatma, there is no complete solution to any problem. That is when we are in the triangular format. But as Atma, what do? I illumine, but I do not become affected by pleasant situations or unpleasant situations. Now, how can I be unaffected by unpleasant situations? Teachers say we do that all the time. For example, a cigarette smoker is illumining the fact that cigarette is injurious for health, but does it affect him? He continues to smoke. So too, very ironically, the teachers say, as students of Vedanta, we illumine the fact again and again, that Tvam Asi, I am that, but what difference has it made? Now, if you are expert at that, then we can also do that. I illumine an unpleasant situation, but then I treat it as a role play. Swamiji says you are from Karnataka, so what you need to do is Karnatak. Play the role. If it is a tragic role, play the role of the tragedy, but all the time remain, you are the illuminator. And when you are logged on, there is no question of bandha. And when there is no question of bandha, there is no question of moksha. As Dr. Anupama said, explaining the last verse, what we love the most is our ego. And the greatest tapasya is to let go of the ego. And how do we let go of the ego in our daily life? In our own families, in our own work life, you have a lot of people who puncture our egos, will hurt our egos. Whenever you are hurt or upset, remember it is the ego that is affected. And therefore, we can take every sadhana in our home and our workplace. We don't have to go anywhere else to be able to say, I will not be affected. And therefore, if each of them who insult me, who humiliate me, who put me down, are all gurus who help me to reveal these words of Bhagavan Ramana, that I have to let go of my ego and anchor on my higher self. And Bhagavan reveals. The word Ramana means to reveal. Bhagavan not only reveals the great Upadesha Sara, but he tells us that we can be like him to revel in this understanding. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Our next class will be on the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is very similar to the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, but contrasting the 8th chapter, which focused so much on Saguna Ishvara Upasana and Krama Mukti. Just like Bhagavan Krishna wants us to attain to Sadhyo Mukti in this birth itself. And again, it is through the process of Vedanta Vichara. This is a beautiful chapter which makes a combination of Jnana and Bhakti. People will think that Nirguna Ishvara Jnana is too difficult to achieve. Krishna says, Susukam, it is very easy. But for whom? For one with the prepared mind. Thank you very much. Aditi, will you please chant these verses for us? Over to you, Aditi.
Hari Om. Sattva bhasika chitkva vetara sattaya hi chet chittaya hyaham isha jivayor veshadhi bida satsvabhavato vastu kevalam veshahanataha swatmadarshanam ishadarshanam swatmarupataha atmasamstitihi swatmadarshanam atmanirdvayad atmanishtata jnanavarjita ajnanahina chitjnanam asti kim jnatumantaram kim swarupam ityatmadarshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham bandhamukyatitam param sukham vindatiha जीवस्तु दैविकः अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियं. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi, for a soulful, flawless chanting of Upadesha Saram, which transported us to a different realm. I am reminded of an anecdote from the book Crumbs from His Table by Ramanananda Swarnagiri. Sri Bhagavan was correcting and aiding some youngsters not more than 10 years of age in memorizing the Sanskrit verses of Upadesha Saram. And the author was laughing to himself at the futility of coaching these youngsters who could not understand the ABC of this highly metaphysical poetry. Without uttering a single word about the laughter, Sri Bhagavan turned to him and remarked, though these children might not understand the meaning of these poems now, yet they would be of immense help to them and would be recalled with great relief and pleasure when they come of age. So Aditi, it's a blessing all the way for you. Thank you, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, for guiding us with your discerning insights, bringing in a better clarity in our understanding. Our sincere gratitude to all the speakers for such a lucid explanation of a nuanced composition. The very powerful message from today worth meditating upon is that realization that there is no bondage, therefore there is no need for freedom. I would like to recall what Bhagavan has said about surrender and vichara. You cannot surrender unless you know who you are. and you cannot know who you are unless you have surrendered the ego. Vichara is parabhakti. May we be abundantly blessed by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi in pursuing Atma Vichara, self-inquiry in all earnestness and succeed in this lifetime. We continue verse by verse study of Bhagavad Gita, starting the 9th chapter in the next session on Friday, the 3rd of December, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.